Hello everybody, welcome back to the Chinkita Studios. This is Jordan, and in today's video, I have a weather forecast update. We have a potential for some severe weather across parts of the northern and northeastern United States over the next few days, including the potential for some flash flooding across many of the same areas. And we also have a potential for a few tropical systems to develop over the coming week, and we already have a couple tropical storms that have already formed. So let's get straight into today's weather forecast. So first I'm going to be talking about the severe weather. For today we have a small slight risk mainly across northeastern Wyoming, another slight risk extending from northeastern Nebraska through much of southern and central Minnesota through the upper peninsula of Michigan. Our tornado risk today is decent. We have a 5% tornado risk across northwestern Wisconsin and to a small sliver east central Minnesota, where you could see a couple of tornadoes later today with storms that do occur. And then we have a large 2% tornado risk from the southeastern South Dakota through the western upper peninsula of Michigan, where you could see a tornado or two with those storms. It all really depends on if we do get a tornadic storm, but if we do, we could have a decent tornado risk. Next, here's a wind risk. Large 15% wind risk from northeastern Nebraska all the way up to the upper peninsula of Michigan, where you can see some scattered damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour later today from a cluster or two of storms that could form later today. And then our hail risk is pretty low in most areas, although we have a small 15% hail risk across northeastern Wyoming, west central South Dakota, and southeastern Montana, where you could see a few hailstones potentially up to golf ball size later today with storms that fire in that area. Now looking at the D2 outlook, we have a marginal risk from eastern Wyoming through northeastern New Mexico, and then another marginal risk up in the Great Lakes area. No tornado risks yet for tomorrow, so it doesn't look like we'll have to deal with tornadoes tomorrow as of now. Our wind risk, we have 5% wind risk in both those areas, where you can see isolated damaging wind gusts potentially reaching 60 to 65 miles an hour at the most. And then our hail risk is relatively low, although we do have a 5% hail risk from eastern Wyoming through northeastern Colorado. And then our day 3 outlook, we have a marginal risk including basically all of North Dakota, and then another marginal risk for much of the northeast United States. Here is your probabilities. From what I've read, here it looks like damaging winds and hail will be the main risk in those areas, although there will be a tornado risk as well with these storms. And finally, day 4 through 8. Day 4 was potential too low, and day 8, which means there shouldn't be anything too significant. But day 5 through day 7 are predictability too low. I wouldn't be surprised to see future outlooks outline around day 3 or day 4, so keep an eye on that. Now looking at the excessive rainfall outlook, today we have a large slight risk of flash flooding from northeastern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, and northwestern Iowa through the upper peninsula of Michigan, where you could see some scattered flash flooding and potentially some isolated significant flash flooding later today. And then we have a marginal risk of flash flooding from southeastern Louisiana through southern South Carolina and all of Florida, which is from a broad area of low pressure which could develop into a tropical system later this week as it moves into the Gulf, which I will talk about in a few minutes here. Next, here's our day 2 excessive rainfall outlook. We have a large slight risk of flash flooding from much of eastern and central Kansas through northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, where we could see some scattered flash flooding. Doesn't look as significant as today. Then we have a marginal risk across much of the southeastern United States, and then a small marginal risk across much of northern California, parts of western Nevada, and southwestern Oregon. And in the southeast, that is also associated with a broad area of low pressure that could develop into a tropical system. In our day 3 outlook, we have a smaller slight risk from southern Iowa through much of Indiana, where you could see some scattered flash flooding yet again, and possibly isolated significant flash flooding. We have a marginal risk of flash flooding from northeastern and north central South Dakota through northwestern Minnesota and much of eastern and central North Dakota. And then we have another one for much of the southern United States from the western Florida Panhandle through east central Texas, which is again associated with a potential tropical system. Now we are going to talk about the tropics. Here is this tropical system here. 10% chance of development within 48 hours and 7 days. It is currently near the southeastern United States coast, and it's over the next couple of days it's going to move into the Gulf of America, where it could develop gradually. And I start to think once it gets to the Gulf or close, we'll start to see those probabilities go up. This is going to be farther out from land than the Invest 93L was here. So I think this has a higher chance of development overall. Next, looking at the Eastern Pacific, 30% chance of development in 7 days, and it's expected that a low pressure system will develop southeast of Hawaii this weekend, and then some gradual development is possible for the system. And if we look at the Central Pacific, same thing. For the first time in a while, we actually have an area of interest in the Central Pacific. And I'm not really sure if this will develop or not, but I would keep an eye out on that, and I will make future updates on the weather, so stay tuned. Next, looking at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, we have Tropical Storm Francisco and Tropical Storm 11W, as well as Invest 98W, which will likely form later today. Looking at Tropical Storm 11, right now it's at 35 knots or 40 miles an hour, and it wouldn't be surprised if we see a typhoon landfall in the Philippines. Right now it has it maxing out at 60 knots or 70 miles an hour, but I would not be surprised if it briefly becomes a typhoon as it makes landfall. Either way, it's still pretty much going to be the same. We could see some flash flooding and some strong wind gusts, which would be pretty significant for that area. And then it's going to move away from land after that, and it's probably going to weaken gradually after that point. Now let's look at Francisco. Oh, here's Francisco. Right now it's at 40 knots or 45 miles an hour. It's expected to peak at 50 miles an hour before gradually weakening as it heads towards China, and it's going to become extratropical by that point. But it could still bring some heavy rainfall to those areas, even if it does not bring wind. Now let's look at satellite imagery. Here's Francisco. You can see how it's developed pretty quickly over the past several hours. It did look very good like 12 hours ago, and now it looks decent. Actually, that's not even 12 hours ago, that's probably like 8. Next, this is Tropical Storm 11. Has a much better satellite presentation. I won't be surprised if it's close to 45 or 50 miles an hour at this point. It looks much better than Francisco did. And I won't be surprised if it becomes a typhoon before landfall, as I said earlier. Here's Invis 98W. Doesn't look very good right now, but this is expected to form pretty quickly. You can always see that it is a low pressure system. You can see the spin beneath all that clouds, and this should form either later today or tomorrow. And finally, here's Invis 90W. This isn't gonna form most likely, but I would keep an eye out on it just in case it does form. Finally, looking at the models, we don't really have time to go super in depth because there's just so much. But first, let's look at the HWRF, and I'm going to set this to win. You can see in 6 hours it has it being a hurricane, and then it has it weakening as it approaches land, and this would actually have it making landfall there. But it's pretty weak there. It doesn't even look like a tropical storm anymore. And then it just has it stalling in this general area, which is quite interesting. Now let's look at 11W. You can see that this has it trying to become like a high-end Category 2 hurricane at 90 knots, which I don't see happening. It won't rule out that if it rapidly intensifies, because it is a favorable area for strengthening, but I don't know if it can strengthen that quickly, especially if how close it is to land. And then it has it becoming extratropical there, which I agree with. And then let's look at Invis 98W. Now that one is sounding. So this has it strengthening very quickly. Around the day, by like 2 days from now, it has it being a hurricane. And then here it has it being a major hurricane around 3.5 days out, which would be crazy if that did happen. This just really isn't a realistic scenario, but let's look at the halves A now. Excuse me. So this one already has Francisco being 65 miles an hour, which is interesting. Then it has it weakening quickly. It has it like extra tropical by like 6 hours. So that's interesting. Next, let's look at 11W. Let's see what it thinks about that one. And I could agree with that. That's about 85, 90 miles an hour. That's not too bad. The thing about this one, it just has it moving north, which I do not agree with on that. It's more likely to go over land instead. And it really does nothing for the rest of its life. And then here's Invest 98W. You can see this has it forming and then quickly strengthening into a major hurricane, peaking out as at 145 miles an hour or 150 miles an hour range before weakening gradually, which is interesting. Next, let's look at the GFS. Here's Francisco. It has it becoming a hurricane force typhoon briefly, before moving over land and dissipating as it weakens pretty quickly. That'd be interesting to see if that's how it happens. Now here's 11W. This has it being hurricane force at landfall, typhoon force. And this has it moving pretty quickly. By 3 hours, it's already moved over the land. And then it really does nothing after that. Was that rain outside? And then here's Invest 98W. You can see how they're forming quickly and then becoming a hurricane before it makes landfall or not. It moves away from land. It gets close to Japan, but look, close enough to produce impacts? I don't know yet. This is just one model. This obviously could vary from model to model. And finally, we're gonna look at the euro. This is Francisco, I believe. So this has it only becoming 53 knots, which would be around 55 knots, which is only 65 miles an hour, which is still above what we're currently forecasting. And then this just has it looping around and making landfall, and somehow like moving over the Koreas in India and then circling back towards Japan. I don't even know what's happening here. Now here's 11W. This actually has it at hurricane force at landfall, or typhoon force at landfall, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But the thing is, the pressure seems a little high for that system there. But it's a euro, it doesn't give a pressure rate a lot. Then, finally, now I want 98W there. Here's 98, Invest 98W. As you can see, it has it strengthening and becoming a pretty significant hurricane. And then it moves north and directly hits Japan, bringing tropical storm, potentially even hurricane force winds to Japan. And then it just does some weird stuff after that. So anyway, that's all I have for today's video. We have the potential for some severe weather the next few days across parts of the northern and northeastern United States, as well as the potential for some flash flooding across many of the same areas. We have a potential for a tropical storm to develop in the Gulf of America later this week, and the potential for a tropical storm to develop in the Central Pacific Ocean next week, as well as the potential for a typhoon to make landfall in the northern parts of the Philippines, and the potential for a tropical storm Francisco to bring impacts to parts of China, and the potential for Invest 98W to possibly become a major hurricane and make landfall in Japan. Goodbye.